another episode of the podcast. Today we are sitting with Mike Schalit. It's really hard to introduce you because you've got such a rich history. And I feel the accolades are really long. But I think one of the probably most prestigious, the part that people would recognize the most, is that you're one of the co-founders of Network, which is now Network BBDO, very established advertising agency. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about your past and how you got into the South African creative industry?
How long have we got? No, I mean, hi. Good to be here. I guess that brings me probably to my favorite quote, which is life is lived forwards, yet understood backwards. And I guess that's, I suppose it's most people's stories, but for me, you've kind of got to keep going forwards, but you stop and then you look and you think, oh, that worked or didn't work, or that was right, that wasn't right. So, and half the things that have happened are by mistake. So I kind of look at the past with fondness in terms of what I've learned, but you don't want to get stuck in it, glory days. And so I get a bit worried, especially going forward with this silver path ahead. But I guess starting Network was an amazing time because it was 94.
Yeah, I was going to say, back in the day.
The world was changing, so it was such an auspicious, scary time. But at the same time, there's opportunity. And we grabbed it, and it was the best of times, was the worst of times. But it was the right time. And I guess that's one of the big lessons I learned. What is the right time? Don't try to be right. Like the wrong time, the right time. Just do things, find a gap, follow your gut. And I think that's what I've kind of done all along. Made lots of mistakes as I did that. But then, as I say, living forwards and yet understanding backwards, you suddenly go, oh, okay. That was good. So I've I guess that's the key thing, is actually just following your gut, being in touch with yourself, and having that energy, courage to go forward.
I mean, your accolades are long. There's Loerie's, there's Grand Prix, there's Cannes. I would hate for you to not celebrate some of those things, but I do understand it is a lot about going forwards. You've also done a lot of work. I think you have a really passion project called Mull. That was also something that you were working on at one stage?
Yeah, I mean, Mull, it goes back to the way I think and work, which is a little Mull. And I think creativity should be like that. It is Mull, but I think where Mull came from, it was an idea we had, even before that idea, when we started the agency in 94, if you think about where South Africa was, the new democracy, and we kind of felt as a culture, as a value system, you have to put back, you have to give back. South Africa needed to close the gaps, and there was so much reconciliation. And we did it in our own way. So we always wanted to make a difference, not just do advertising for advertising's sake. Where could creativity put something back into society, into community? And then as we went along, ideas were starting to feed off and into that, just to make people's lives maybe more comfortable, whether it's through humor, through charity, through putting back. And we actually did an outdoor billboard for Nedbank, which was a solar billboard, it literally was a solar panel that gave electricity to a school.
That's beautiful.
And it was all about an enabler. That's what a bank is. It was for Nedbank. It's an enabler. Power to the people. It was a school in Alex Township. And we actually got South Africa's first outdoor Grand Prix at Cannes.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was also when solar wasn't that prevalent.
Yeah, and it created a new category of advertising. I mean, all we did was we felt, here's a cool idea, let's do it. We actually had to build the billboard ourselves. Everyone was like, you mad, you can't do it. We're like, well, why not? We can. And there was no such, and the bank had to pay the school for rental because we put the billboard at the school.
Their property,
And it sent out a great signal about, that this isn't just an elite bank. And then it also sent a signal out to the world, I guess, that advertising can still do its job.
Yeah.
So it did the branding job for it changed opinions for the bank.
Yeah.
because it was make things happen, which is Billboard literally did, which was the slogan we put up for Nedbank.
Yeah.
And it actually, there was power feeding to the school and all those things that came out of it.
Yeah.
And then Nedbank did a whole lot of solar power in Santon, and it became became a big thing for Green Bank. And then also in the advertising world, they started doing a lot more work for purpose, creativity, purpose suddenly became the big thing.
Yeah.
And so I guess sometimes if you're doing things for the right reasons, everything will fall in place. We certainly weren't trying to win an award. And then suddenly South Africa's first Grand Prix for outdoor at Cannes, it puts a lot of things on the map. Yeah. So that was very exciting.
I mean, that's beautiful. It's nice when advertising or anything, marketing is just not just like, let's sell, there's always like that nice heart behind it. I think that's always beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big thing now. I mean, when was that? Maybe 18 years ago.
Yeah.
We did that. But I've loved seeing that it hasn't suddenly become, oh, that's stale. Let's not do that anymore. Just, and I think it's the one thing I've really enjoyed about, like, whether it's social media, digital. There's a lot more brands now have an element of giving back, of putting something back, of purpose. And I know it's bandied around and sometimes it's greenwashing, but it's just great to see that it's there.
Yeah.
And that you can have a win-win. You can do something for a brand and you can put something back. It's a little deeper. And I think the way the world is and the way people are, you touch them more if you actually show a generosity of spirit. Yeah. And that's why I kind of think the best ads for me still today are acts, not ads.
Yeah.
Where there's something beyond just a cool idea.
Yeah.
Where there's something that sits there forever, that creates a legacy that it's just somehow
touches somewhere.
I know.
Like, I mean, you're still giving back now. You've recently been in the Stellenbosch Academy's classroom space. You were working with the third years on a truly South African project. How was that experience for you?
For me, again, I guess that giving back kind of comes back to haunt me, but I love it because I feel now I've over 4 decades of doing stuff. It's so cool now to maybe just impart some of the learnings, the mistakes, the wisdom, I guess, that comes from experience. And being able to work with the Academy has been amazing because you've got, I mean, that's the one thing. I tell you what, the new generation, this next generation are smart.
Yeah.
When I think where we came from, stumbling along and just learning in a different way, there's now sound learning institutions in place, teaching principles. And I think that's great because you can already feel there's a groundswell, there's a platform from which they work from. So I loved working. And the openness I still love, because I think that's a key thing about creativity, is you have to be open to criticism, to change, to redoing your ideas. There's always another idea. That's kind of your best defense as a creative. Well, okay, I'll find another one. And I saw that a lot in your students. I saw the bright eyes, I saw the smartness, and then I saw that sense of handling. A little disappointment, but
at times.
I mean, hey, we're all human.
Exactly.
But we kept it open and honest, and I loved the fact they kept coming back.
Yeah. And you don't know what you don't know, so that's what makes it all part of the learning experience. I think one of the things that I felt, I mean, you do this really well, is you're such a great storyteller. And I think you engage with the students on that level, and I felt like they wanted to emulate that in you. Do you think storytelling is one of the key components for young people to have when going out into the industry?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's kind of a constant.
Yeah.
A lot of things are going to change, but there's certain things that won't. And storytelling is as old as the hills.
Yeah.
And it's never going to change because a story is captivating. It's going beyond. It's often based on a human truth. It comes from somewhere very solid. There's emotion. There's universal buy-in. But then there's a freshness to every story. Even the same story with the same like principle. Somehow, when someone else tells it, like the broken telephone effect.
Yeah.
It's cool because it suddenly touches somebody else in a different language. What's great about South Africa now is the diversity, and then you impart like new thinking through stories, and the story is what engages people. So it's not dry. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And I think that must never change. And the one key thing about stories is stories do come out of experience.
Yeah.
So it's harder when you're younger.
Yeah, you don't have that many stories.
So that's why the biggest lesson, I guess, is get out there.
Yeah.
As you know, and that's probably the biggest danger today is social media.
Yeah.
It's quite comforting to sit in an insular space.
Yeah.
Working just with
and
computers.
not create your own stories.
So you have to get out there. You have to break through that digital curtain and feel things, do things, so that you can tell those stories yourself in a new, fresh voice.
Exactly. I mean, they say there are no new stories, but I always feel like it's the voice behind the story that makes it new, you know? So I love it. I love seeing them get excited, and even, you know, they're coming of age, they're learning new things, they're experiencing stuff for the first time. And that still happens, you know, all the way up until your adulthood. So that's really beautiful.
No, it's great because like stories come out of stories.
Yeah.
You know, and there's probably is only, like they always joke, like with movies, or there is only like one story, you know, and then everything else is a variation.
Yeah.
But I guess that's the same with ideas.
Yeah.
You know, it's almost like the best ideas and the best stories are almost a combo.
Yeah.
Of that story told with this voice, with that other story in the back. And then suddenly it creates a new story. And it just it touches you in a different way because it's unexpected.
Yeah. I think one of the things that you always bring up is really a key aspect for any young creative is the idea generation. And I think those two link really well together. What is so important about that?
I think, especially going forward now, there's like such a flatness in terms of everybody now has access. Well, I guess not everybody, but if you are going into the industry,
you've got
whether
access.
you're learning it, you've got access to the same tools, the same platforms. You know, digital AI, all of that has kind of flattened the space, so that everybody's kind of feeding off the same thing, and then maybe playing out and playing off the same thing.
Yeah.
So in order to be fresh and touch people in different ways and get attention and make attention, because that's your job at the end of the day, if you're going to touch and get through and connect, is you have to transcend those either the particular skills you have or those tools, and how you'll transcend that is with original ideas, with conceptual ideas, with freshness, that then you can hone it with the skill set you have and with the tools you have, but you still need that original fresh idea, and that's the one thing you almost can't learn.
Yeah.
It's the one thing you almost have to spontaneously try stuff, experiment, do things, make mistakes, all those things that lead up to happy accidents that create fresh, original, boom, two different things collide, and suddenly you've got a cool idea.
So is that how your process works? Is yours very much spontaneity? I know some people rely on tools or processes, formulas. Is yours like, you'll be in the shower singing a song and it'll be like, this is it?
I wish it was that easy. I'd have to have a lot of showers some days. But yes, I mean, I think, again, that's my way.
Yeah.
And some people will relate to that because there's an intuitive spontaneity, spontaneous combustion that I love. I've always kind of stumbled around, and that's what's great with a stumble. You sort of fall and grab something. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's interesting.
Okay.
And I think that's the way I've gone. I mean, as you go along the way, you find little handholds that can help you to give you like if you are getting stuck, to try force a bit of energy, create some fresh air, try things, look at things in a new way from a different perspective. But that's the way I work. But other people, I don't think there's there's no right way or wrong way. There just is the way that works for you.
Yeah.
And that's what you're going to have to just find your way, your voice, your way of working best.
I think also, I mean, I feel like this really supports the argument about going out into the world, right? I think the more you're experiencing in the world, the more experiences you have. And then that's where ideas, I think, often are drawn from as experience. It's like, what else is going out and seeing what people are doing, experimenting with new things. You know, you advertising a product, you've got to go try it. So I'm a big advocate of like, get away from your computer.
Absolutely. It's like, just Go away. I mean, I used to tell the guys at work, and in those days you didn't have this, great way you could work remotely and online. You literally had to be at the office.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. I was just like, get out the office.
Yeah.
Life is not lived in the office. The real people are out there in the street, in the coffee bars, in the bars. And that's where you're going to hear your best stories. And that's the other thing is it's like about being a sponge, a chameleon, just absorb things, listen, be a bit of a voyeur. I mean, the world we're in, if you stuck to your computer or your phone, you're only taking in a certain bandwidth. You're just taking in, and probably other people are taking the same stuff. So that's why you'll often see similar ideas coming out at the same time. I mean, you're judging at an ad festival and the category is soap. And then the first 10 ads all look like they came from the same place.
It's the same brand.
And they're cool, they're interesting, they're slick.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
But you're going, these people were all watching the same shows, downloading the same stuff.
Yeah.
So it's the guy who went out there and went to this odd bar or went camping up a mountain and stumbled into some people and tried a product that they would never normally try. Because let's face it, the people in our industry are like pretty much the trendies, right?
Yeah.
So you're also mixing with the same kind of people.
Yeah. Very like-minded, similar humans.
So get out, go to a bad supermarket or go to an old aged home or go to a school and go to a library somewhere. Just go anywhere that you wouldn't normally go, where your associates would normally, because that's the problem. You're all in the same coffee shop, you're at the same show. And then you're going to suddenly you can overhear something really interesting. And so definitely it's getting out there and especially go to uncomfortable places. Get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I think also for students, what I find is they can understand themselves as a target audience, but for them to put themselves in other people's shoes is really difficult. So that really is like, get out there and see what your audience that you're speaking to is doing. Like, stop shopping at Willie's, try somewhere else.
Walk in someone else's shoes, exactly. Even if it is uncomfortable or you're slippery.
Yeah.
That's where, I love that Leonard Cohen song, the cracks. That's where the light gets in.
Okay.
Find those cracks. Stumble in those cracks, because that is where the light gets in. That's a new space, and that suddenly sheds a whole new area of light, and that's where you can find some magic. And that's where people, it's the unexpected that stops people in their tracks, and that's when you're going to connect.
That's true. That's very true. Let's say you've got this idea now. It's very fun, like very basic. It hasn't got legs yet. What is your process in developing it more? Like, I know I have a little bit of a formula that helps me. It's almost like a checklist to keep myself in. What is that for you? Like, how is it sitting down, brainstorming? Is it interacting with people? Is it like, how do you get your ideas from like inception to something that's actually going to work?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a tough one because, again, there's no formula.
Yeah.
And like you say, you have a way.
Yeah.
I have a way. And that's part of experience, finding your way. But what I find, the first thing for me is to get to that actually quite simple idea. You have to read the brief. I know that's like a bizarre thing to say, but it's crazy wild. The crazy wild only comes within parameters.
Yeah.
And those parameters, we talk about the freedom of a tight brief.
Yeah.
Work within those parameters and know. So what I do is I get my guys, or I will straight away, even if I haven't got time, as soon as that brief, if you're pitching or it's because we don't wait for that deadline.
Yeah. Start now.
Even if I haven't got time, I work on a million other things. Just read it.
Yeah.
So know exactly, listen to there might be some verbal stuff, listen to the client, really listen, as opposed to trying to already think of ideas, like soak it up, because your brain is still the best AI you're ever going to get.
Yeah.
That machine, it's incredible. You'll just read it, let it fall asleep to it, whatever. It'll already start churning. So when you actually start working on it, somehow there's already some stuff in there.
Yeah.
And then my big thing is like, just volume, max, like scale. Come up with millions of ideas, thoughts based on that. Don't prejudge, don't pre-censor. the danger is always when you judge, don't judge too quickly.
Yeah.
Because what a lot of people will do, and I guess deadlines don't help. And if you're a student, it's the same thing. You know, it's got to be in by this day. But the problem is you straight away, that's a cool idea. And you stop. Or you go, that's a bad idea, and you throw it out. I think that the most important part is actually just to have ideas. And almost force yourself, and this is what works for me, as many as you can.
Yeah.
Kind of
like
call
exhaust yourself.
Yeah, I call it a DIY lobotomy. It's like, just lobotomize your brain. Stop thinking and just do.
Yeah.
Because that's when you're not pre-censoring or judging. So a lot of interesting stuff comes, and then you can filter later.
Yeah.
So I just go and then sort of start pulling out some that still, they might not feel 100% right, but they're interesting. And then after that, when you've found something, you almost have to start the process all over again. So when you find like something, you go, okay, that feels, because the relevance is what those parameters give you. So you can have a crazy idea, it can be outrageous, but it's responsible in terms of it's still relevant.
Yeah.
And then then you, okay, which of these ideas are still relevant? And then if you find that one, then again, mine into that and come up with a million ideas based on that. And I felt that was the one thing I saw with the students. And I think it's a classic thing we all do. Yeah. Agencies do the same thing.
Yeah.
You have that sort of insight or that strap line or
that's something.
That's something that you go, this is definitely resonates. It works with the brief and it works with little touch consumers. There's a nice bridge.
Yeah.
But then you kind of stay with the flatness of that instead of going now, like, how many things can I work off this and in how many different channels? And I found often the guys just sort of, that was that, and then they just said, okay, we can do a TV ad or a print ad or a...
Yeah. They're almost like, I have to do
digital.
4 touch points or whatever, and
you
just go, okay.
and the best stuff you need to just, and then out of that you go, oh wow, that's interesting. You can actually make a movie out of this, or you could, a radio commercial could work, or a TikTok little film, or So I think that's probably the most important. Is don't stop.
Yeah.
Keep going, keep mining, keep digging, keep drilling, and throw stuff around. Be open to whether it's with your partner or you do need a soundboard. It's hard to work on your own.
Yeah. I think that's also something that they tend to get a little bit nervous about is throwing their ideas to somebody else and getting their feedback on it. Because even if somebody comes back with something negative, I feel like it's often sparks something like, okay, I can see why maybe that's a bit shit. Maybe I should try something else. But like that soundboarding, I think, is also something it can be difficult because I guess there's this feeling of like I'm being judged, but it's really about the idea and not about the human.
It's probably the most valuable thing for creativity, and it's kind of why, I mean, I keep holding on to this, but everyone keeps asking about AI, and you go, AI is a tool, and it's actually becoming a very valuable tool. Embrace it.
Yeah.
But the thing about humanity, humans, interrelationships, is that cross-pollination. Yeah. And the more brave you are about sharing, the better your ideas will be, because you throw this, someone throws something back. I mean, conflict leads to creativity. I think De Bono said that, and it's such a wonderful thing because you need that tension. So your idea is only worth so much, but someone adding or subtract sometimes creates tension, pulls it, and something really cool comes out of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one thing you have to learn quite early. And I remember walking to a have you got anything? And they go, nothing could yet. And you go, come on, guys, share, just throw it out there.
Yeah.
And then we used to force them to share it with the whole department.
Yeah.
And it's hard because you're exposing yourself, as a creative.
There's vulnerability in there.
It's like taking it all off and like, and like I'm showing how stupid I am.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's why I keep encouraging, be stupid.
Yeah.
It's okay because it's ideas.
Yeah.
It needs,
it's not the final solution yet. We're not there yet.
And then someone will help you clothe it again and make it special.
I think, you just speaking about AI, and one of the things I'm noticing in the classroom is we're encouraging them to use AI as a tool, but I think there's this very gray area where we're like, AI is not, it's helpful, but it's not amazing. There's still, like, you could bring something added extra, and it's almost like their voice is like they're too scared to share that voice. And I'm like, take whatever AI has said and build on it. Maybe it has something in there that's remotely good. How do you feel about that process and that idea?
Yeah, I think that is the way to do it. I mean, again, it's another
not going
tool.
Anyway, so.
Yeah. And AI is only going to get better and more sophisticated.
Yeah.
But again, it's still that flat platform. Everyone can feed into the same thing. So it's still going to play out the same very slick, very professional, very logical, very rational response.
Yeah.
You still need to add
Yeah.
that craziness, that turning it on its head, that twisting it, that chipping away at it to find that something.
That's something, yeah.
You know, the first act of creation is actually destruction. In whatever you do, and take out, see what you can destroy.
Yeah.
To find something like break away, find that something within the same block that everyone else is using. Find that, hone, sculpt,
And
find
build on
that,
it.
and I think that's. Otherwise, you have to believe in the power of that soul of creativity.
Yeah.
I'll never give up on that, and everyone must see that. But again, you can't. I've seen it over the years, whether when it was social media coming through, digital, all kinds of media. You still, with how it changes, it's still going back to that absolute raw creativity.
Yeah.
That'll separate you and your voice. Find your voice and then use it.
I think that's also a big part of what we do as lecturers or facilitators. I feel like we're not lecturers anymore, is helping them find their voice. And so having these additional voices like yourself coming into the space, there's suddenly a different perspective. Like I loved being like listening to the students pitch ideas to us, and you had one take and I had another take, and we ended up having a good conversation about it. And I think that's such a rich experience. And I think, again, whilst they might not be going outside of the classroom, just bringing voices in really, really helps. Like,
I think that's what's so great about even your brief was about a uniquely South African campaign, and that's a special voice. You know, I think we need to remind ourselves we're in Africa. We have this diversity. We're blessed with, I think, more creativity than any other continent. Woo! Viva! And you even see it in the Bokke. You see that diversity, and that's what makes it special. And that bloody mindedness. Fuck, we're going to do this, you know. I mean, you see Rassi. And I think that's our voice creatively as well. And I think we just need to be more proud of it, because you tend to always think, oh, Eurocentric, the history goes deep
somehow
back. And
they're better.
And actually, what about our history, the cradle of humankind? Come on, guys. We really, and I think our biggest resource, which we don't see, we think it's like gold or platinum down there. No, it's creative ingenuity. How else could you survive in Africa? Look at what guys have had to do, and the amazing design and creativity and resourcefulness. And I think that's our voice. And the more, and I saw it coming out in the brief, because it was a very South African, so the voice, the language, the cultures, and then overlapping them and creating this new voice and the slang and the vernaculars we have. I think that's quite special. And you saw it starting to come through, and you just need more of it and need to be more and proud of it, and because it's fresh.
I'd love to see a resurgence. I remember in the 90s, I mean, I was quite young then, but there was just this, like, it was that celebration of the Rainbow Nation. You know, it would be so nice to see that come back, because I think we are creative because of our limitations. You know, I think of all the wild, crazy things we do to get around, like load shedding, or, you know, these simple things in life.
And in fact, that came up a lot in the South African ideas. It's actually, you actually realize adversity can be a blessing because it forces you to be resourceful.
Exactly.
And it's that creative ingenuity.
Critical thinking, got to find a way.
And I remember when we had to come up with a campaign for South Africa, for the IMC, the Marketing Council, and it was alive with possibility. Was what our strategy was. And I mean, that says it all. It's that creative ingenuity.
Gets you excited.
And you see it coming out in our music, our art, our sport. And I think it needs to come out in our industry, you know. And it is. And we had this explosion of, like, we embraced everything when South Africa was this new democracy. And that was those first, you know, those mid-90s. And I remember with Nando's, and it didn't have to be, you know, Nando's, obviously we said, let's have this new South African voice. But it went across to Toyota, to motor vehicles,
everybody
to banks.
Was in it,
And you still see it lurking around today. But I think
I almost
guys can
want
go
them
back.
to turn it up, you know.
Yeah,
Let's get level
all
11.
these voices and cultures
Yeah.
and language. It's very special.
Yeah, I feel like the language is so exciting. That mix, because we're such a culturally mixed bunch of people. Like, I love it when that language comes through and we're mixing all of them together to create something new. I think that's just so exciting.
And you see it in our music.
Yeah.
And I saw it actually in the campaigns. The guys, they researched that quite well.
Yeah.
Even stuff they didn't know from home, and
Yeah,
wasn't their
from their-
native
yeah.
tongue, they still went out and said, oh, this is a cool word, or this is a slang used here,
Yeah.
or a vernacular used in the streets. And I think that's why radio is still such a powerful medium in South Africa, which very few countries have that now.
Yeah.
And it's something we need to hang on to, because that's theatre of the mind. You're just playing with words
It's-
or
yeah.
music or sound.
And it's really engaging. Can we elaborate more on Mal?
Yeah, I mean, what excites me about Mal is seeing that element I was talking about, that
Yeah.
win-win, where you can do something for a brand, do your job, but also put something back into society.
Yeah.
It just adds a little bit more respect for what we do, and also...
But it wasn't an advertising, it wasn't a studio, it was just really you guys doing passion projects.
Yeah, it
That's
came
what's
out of
more
a thinking.
Okay.
And then I found this, it was almost like a philosophy.
Okay.
We've started this agency. Let's not be an ad agency. Let's be more than that. Let's change the world.
Okay.
And we looked at, we were at the bottom of Africa, and we went, I found this map, you can find it on the web, where it turns everything, it inverts everything. And you
Okay.
can turn the map upside down,
Okay.
but actually it puts us, so now suddenly we're on top. The only downside, Australia was also quite close, but suddenly America wasn't that big, and Russia was.
Yeah.
And so then you go, actually we're on the top of the world. And it's a
Yeah.
nice way of looking at things. Don't accept your reality.
Yeah.
Like, turn it on its head. So we used to say we want to turn the world upside down.
Okay.
And South Africa had succeeded. I mean, what a miracle was 94.
Yeah.
With Mandela and Ramaphosa, actually, in those days,
I mean,
with
I
a new
always feel like we gloss over
constitution.
that. Like, one of the few countries that did this so peacefully.
A peaceful transition. I mean, if that wasn't creative, I mean, talk about strategy and negotiation. So we played so much off that. And then we wanted to have that as a philosophy. So even in terms of the agency, we put something back, a percentage went back to our people, to help them grow, whether it was their home, to do things, because we had to change the landscape, and you can't. And I wish every company thought like that. If everyone had started putting back, this gap would have got narrower, not wider.
Yeah.
And then I found this quote from Churchill, actually,
Okay.
believe it or not, which is, we make a living by what we get, we make a life by what we give. So make a living by what we
Yeah.
get,
Yeah.
make a life by what we give, and make a living, make a life.
Oh,
And that duality, I thought, was amazing. Like,
Yeah.
and I started sort of challenging our clients, like, say, even the bank, going, okay, you make a living by getting people's money,
Yeah.
but how do you make a life? By giving people money through your loans, through your, and yeah, you can do it through advertising, make things happen. And you can do that with every brand. You're making a living by this, ice cream, whatever. How are you going to make lives? What you going to do with that? And so make a living, make a life, mull.
Yeah.
And then what's great with creativity is you got to be a bit mull. You can't do it a normal way, and that's there's a South African voice.
Such a South African
It's all of
word
that.
as well,
So
mull.
kind of all the things came together there.
Yeah.
You got to be a bit mad. You make a difference, but there's a heart to it, and there's making a living and making a life.
Yeah.
And I'll dine out on that forever. So the philosophy, and then we created a design agency that did that.
Okay.
And we managed to build 20 libraries. So what we did is we
wow.
take a percentage of what we did or what we get, and
Yeah.
keep that in Mull. We created a little Mull design studio. And then we designed a basic library for primary schools, because we found that I think it was only 7% of government schools in the whole of South Africa had functioning libraries.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
And going back to where we started, I mean, we're sitting in a library.
Yeah.
Libraries will never go away. That feeds you. It's imagination. It's a little launch station for that rocket of imagination. So we said, let's put back into libraries, and let's build. And we created this little blueprint for creating a little library where clients could do some designs on the outside, so they were colorful. And we worked with the Department of Education so that we did the right thing for the schools, and they were the right books they got. And
That's
and
incredible.
Breadline
Yeah.
worked with us as an NGO, understood all that. And so we found the right schools, and clients put in money. It came from a percentage, we put in the other percentage. And we managed over the years, we built 20 libraries in different schools, which are still functioning. They do audits. So every year, thousands of youngsters are feeding into imagination and going somewhere. So that was sort of a living embodiment of that philosophy. And and I'm seeing more South African companies doing that, whether you're in design, advertising, creative or not. And I think that's really important for any
I
company.
feel like it's also not something that can just sit on NGOs, like platforms. I think we all need to get it together and help out in any way that we can.
We have to. I mean, I think just to have a credible future, the politicians aren't going to do it. I mean, hey, maybe now Canoe, the Wildebeest will do it. I don't know. But it's got to come from us.
Yeah.
And I think when I look at creativity and acts, not ads, and making a living, making a life, I kind of get really excited because I go, creativity is the most powerful weapon we have. It's not an indulgence.
Yeah.
It actually is part and
you can
parcel
make
of who we are as South Africans and Africans. And that is the way we can change things. And that is the way we can solve problems. That's the innovation we need. And I think we need a department of creativity. That's what will help solve things. We need a minister.
Innovation lab.
A minister of
just like,
innovation.
Let's find creative ways to solve these problems.
Because in it, the one thing I always used to say to clients, it's not about budget.
Yeah.
It's actually about the power of the idea. And actually, I loved it when there was a small budget. Because then you're actually going, okay, well, if you've got a small budget, we need a great idea.
Yeah.
And kind of if you look at what we have here, we have small budgets as a country.
Yeah.
Compared to the rest of the world. So let's come back with like innovation, creativity, and solve problems that way. We've got the people to do it. We've got the headspace. We just need that belief.
Absolutely. Can I pivot? I want to talk about Nando's. You've mentioned it briefly, but I know that you're one of you're one of the first. I think you were really part of like growing Nando's to where it is today. And I want to just talk about how that started. Because I think it's really interesting. I know for you, like, okay.
No, I'm very proud of that. And again, that shows the power of partnership.
Yeah.
When we say you can't do anything on your own.
Yeah.
Even when Robbie Brosen started with Fernando, it was two of them. It took a guy, a Portuguese, he understood the chicken, the recipe. That took a guy like Robbie to go, I love this feeling. I love this taste. I want to do something with it. And the two of them made something happen. And then, it was early days, and I think they had maybe 4 stores, and we got involved. I was with an agency called Hunt Lascaris at the time. And and that's such a powerful part of creativity. We gelled.
Yeah.
There was a values.
Okay.
And culture and values are very important. And somehow the two value, and even today I still have this wonderful relationship with Robbie, because he just recognizes he had that passion.
Yeah.
He knew he understood a good idea, and he pushed for it, and he was also scared of it. He was honest.
Yeah.
But we just worked together, and that's the bravery of a client and the honesty. Someone's go, no, maybe not you. No, not this time. Please, Schalit. No, Mike. No. What do you? But then we worked together, and sometimes we were kind of wrong and had to shift a little bit. But I think the key there was a celebration of where South Africa was, that funny voice, those funny little things that were happening at the time.
Incredible.
And actually building a brand on that, on that tone of voice, that irreverence, and still going today. But the fact that there was always an openness, a partnership, an honesty, and those values, and then an ambition. We said in the early days, you're going to be a global brand. Did we believe it? I don't know. It was just going, you have to have ambition. You have to go beyond like your little space. And we had that ambition, and there was that bravery and that combination of working together. And that's kind of, they had the courage to buy ideas that maybe they didn't necessarily understand or like. And we fortunately still worked within that box of, okay, it was a crazy box
Yeah.
that we could work with, but we still worked within that relevance. And every now and then strayed,
Yeah.
but then we're pulled back into line and knowing when to, okay, oops.
I mean,
But sometimes you have to, you have to push a bit.
I mean, it's definitely a formula that they're still using today. Like, they're still taking the risks. And it's like everybody's waiting. Something happens in the world, and the first thing we do is like, what's Nando's going to say about this?
And what's amazing about that brand, they still recognize the early guys who were there in the early days.
Yeah.
I love that part about them. It's about, it's not about you or me, or it's us. It's doing something together. And I think it also just shows the power of ideas and a tone of voice. And something unique that South Africa has, the fact that it has a value beyond just, people always go, oh, that's creative, but now we need to build a brand. We need to sell. We need to, they go together. There's a perfect example.
And it's also, it's thinking beyond that. I mean, you can easily sell chicken, and you can talk about how delicious it is and it's free range or whatever the case is, but often what Nando's is talking about is nothing to do with chicken.
But somehow it's everything to do with the brand,
yeah.
and then it will sell chicken.
Exactly, yeah.
And so it actually has a monetary value, and that's what people have to realize. We often were measured, later on we did Chicken Licken, and just put a new South African voice onto that, or a different voice. But again, it had that same bravery and conviction and tone of voice. And we were actually, we had very set sales targets. And amazing, when we did the right, crazy, relevant idea for Licken, sales went through the roof, and we scored. Because it was based on sales. So we could see, and I think people forget that great creativity builds brands, sells product. It's not just this wonderful, that's the art. Can we now get down to business?
How much of that process do you think is the relationship you build with your client? Because I look at you and you say something and I believe it.
Dangerous.
So I'm wondering, like, I think part of what has made you been so successful is that you built these really good relationships with your clients.
I think you've hit on a really key area, and I've always said to people, and it's not that easy to do. I think we were lucky in a way because a lot of new brands were coming through. So say like Nando's, great example. We worked with Robbie Brosen, the founder. Chicken Licken, we worked with George Sambornis, the founder. If you can, and it's not that easy, but somehow, even if any corporates are watching this, let your CEO, your key decision maker, the guy who, if your CMO is the key decision maker, fantastic. But otherwise, you've got gatekeepers. And unfortunately, when you've got brand managers, and then if you are a brand manager somewhere, go and say, guys, if I'm the brand manager, I want to be able to make the calls. And I know that's not as easy. I don't know how that works up the ladder. Sorry, revolution. But it's so important because when you're working with a guy who can make the calls, they get the brand, they understand, and they've got the bravery. If you're working with a gatekeeper, I don't know, I'll have to check with blah, blah, and then it gets lost.
And then the creativity and the...
if I'm sitting in the room with a CEO, I can fall about, I can go... I say, I promise you. I can't promise you. But it's the best chance you've got. Because if you don't, then you've got no chance. So at least try this idea. I mean, even if you're wrong, you're still going to have an ad out there or communication out there or a channel out there or something out there. But if you're right, wow. So I think that's the key thing is a bad idea will just maybe end up being average. It can't really, unless you've really been blasphemous or you've kind of pushed the line where you've undermined a brand. That's different. I think you've got to watch your tone. But otherwise, how bad can a bad idea be? Whereas a good idea can really take your brand and skyrocket it. But it's being in the room, being able to convince, look someone in the eye and try to get that. And that is important. So I think if you can, you need to get to the decision maker.
I think that tone of voice also, if you can get it from straight from the horse's mouth, there's like always little tidbits of like information or ideas that come through when you get that moment.
I mean, it's amazing. And that's some of our best ideas came out of me sitting in a room with that guy who I remember talking to someone in insurance, I think it was Hollard, and he was the CEO, the founder, and I just said, just tell me, like, what is it? What do you do? Like what? And he just said, we're in the croak business. like everyone croaks. And then he carried on. He was just trying to be funny, like breaking the ice. And then we actually came up with an ad where you watched a frog sitting there for like, I don't know, 25 seconds. And in the last second, it just croaked. It went, "Wah," you know. And then everyone croaks eventually. So expect the unexpected, get insurance. I mean, it was that simple, but it only came out of that
little conversation.
And I remember when I presented to the marketing, they were like, are you crazy? And I went, no, speak to your CEO. That's what he told me. So it was just a brainer. But then after that, they used the frog for a whole lot of campaigns. It certainly did something.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a sort of silly example, but it kind of worked.
It's a perfect example, I think. It shows like that little bit of information got to this bigger idea, I think.
And you can then squeeze them. You can say, no, come on, there must be something else. There must be something else. Yeah. And they'll have more, they'll know more, and then some gem will just pop out that might not be in the brief.
Yeah. And I think that leads back to like, you were saying earlier about sitting in and really listening. And I think that's important as well. It's like actually active listening. Like someone's talking to you about their brand, about the brief, whatever. The more engaged you are with it, the more you'll pick up these little bits of information that actually could lead to the big idea.
Exactly. I mean, another example, we were working with Isuzu and we loved they had a payoff. I think it was like global payoff. Isuzu delivers. Yeah. And we were going, that's so cool for a bakkie. You know, bakkie has to deliver. And then I remember they were saying, we've got this the last model until our new one. We've got to do a campaign, but there's nothing really new to say. And I was like, come on, there has to be. And said, oh, come on, I've got to. So I sat with the key guys who understood the bakkie, this old bakkie. They said, God, there's nothing. I kept saying there has to be something. No, this is old. And then they said, I mean, honestly, there is no, I mean, all we're doing is we're collecting landmines in Mozambique. That's with these old bakkies. Yeah. What? Collecting landmines? They were clearing landmines in Mozambique.
Wow.
I was like, guys, stop. You can tell me more. And this was called Operation Isuzu. I'll come back to it, but it was an Operation Rochelle. Operation Rochelle, which the South African police worked with Isuzu. They sponsored them with the bakkies, and they collected landmines, all the landmines, and cleared landmines for the people. I mean, talk about Isuzu delivers. I walked back. I went right there in that meeting was we've got the idea.
Yeah.
And we literally did like a documentary about Operation Rochelle. Went up there with the police, just saw what they were doing, and showed these bakkies in those tough areas, inhospitable terrain, collecting stuff, loading them, and bringing them back. And I mean, what better way? And that ad did so well for them in terms of just as a brand. You had bakkie owners going, oh, sit up a little straighter now behind the wheel because you're proud, you're doing something amazing. And Isuzu delivers. So that was a really good example of just squeezing, sitting with a client who knows their brand better than their product.
I mean, that's amazing. That's such a beautiful story as well. I love just hearing that perspective of you being in that space and being like, I have to find something, I'm going to. And then this bigger, beautiful flower emerges. But I want to say thank you, Mike, for joining us. It's been really awesome. Again, I could sit and listen to your stories for hours.
Sure. Got you, captive audience.
But I appreciate you coming on here and just like sharing just your insights and your past. It really means a lot. And I think it's really like such a beneficial voice that the students need to hear.
Oh, thank you. Obrigado. Thank you. And here's to the future.
Yeah, cool.